So, Aaron, what's your role inside the state's security department?
I'm a security analyst for the Security Operations Center. I mostly try to look for indicators of compromise and then validate what we're seeing and pass that information off to the local agency contacts because they're more of a customer of ours.
And how's your role changed, pre and post security analytics?
It's become a lot easier to look at the overall picture of an attack, the full landscape, where before you're trying to get pieces together from a little bit from the firewall logs, a little bit from the IPS, and then try to coordinate more to get boots on the ground to look at the endpoints. At this point, you can get so much information just from the wire. You can see the attack come in. You can get a copy of the piece of malware, for instance, and then you can pass the full report off to the local agency. And then, of course, use the indicators that you have seen to see if any other agencies have seen that kind of attack and may not be aware of it.
What would you advise somebody who's in your old role who's considering security analytics and deploying it?
One of the big things once you start revealing what's in the network is it seems to be like an information overload. And so, don't shy away from it. Just make sure that you take it bit by bit, break it down into your key areas, into your critical assets. And it's a learning curve. If you don't know HTML headers, if you don't know what a refer field is, if you're not familiar with query strings, or a little bit about PHP or JavaScript, you start to learn these things, and just bit by bit, you get much better about picking out what's malicious in the traffic and what's not, and what's in your network in the first place.
Do you have any lessons learned, things you'd do differently if you had it all over to do again?
I think customization of the tool is something that was very big that we ended up doing a little bit later, where you can set up categories for specific critical assets. And so with one click, you can focus on your key assets and look at those. And you can also set up your different departments and look at those specific departments individually. So if human resources calls and they have some unusual computer activity on their side, one click you can zoom in on just what their traffic looks like and then jump into it whatever depth that you like.
And what would be on your wish list for what's next as far as tools and capabilities?
To get better visibility, because right now we're just on the border, and so to get better visibility into some of the endpoints and what the different agencies are seeing to build that communication, where we can get more information and be able to validate better instead of just getting one piece of the pie.
So, Aaron, give us a scenario of what it's like, even day to day or during a particular incident handling situation.
One of the things we see often is to have an agency contact us that a machine may be acting unusually. And so then we can drill down, look at that specific machine, and trace back. And so we've often been able to come back to the agency with information like, this is the website your user was going to. This was the banner ad that was on that website that bounced them through 3 different other servers. Here's the actual malware that they've seen. If your antivirus vendor doesn't have the signature, here's what you can hand them. And then to give it in a nice big package to them so that they don't have to do as much work on their end to validate, but they can just work on containing and then solving the problem.
So, as an analyst, what's the best part of security analytics?
To me, the best part is getting that overall picture of what's going on. Before, you would have snippets and you would have, likelihood of a compromise. And with the tool, you can actually go in there and see this is the JavaScript that they're running, this is the payload that they're using, this is the FTP servers that they're using, and the exact traffic that's going across the wire. So from start to finish, you can see the compromise move throughout your network and who is talking to what it's doing exactly through the network.
Aaron, tell us about your role inside the state as a security analyst. I can't ask the question. Aaron, tell us about your role inside the state before and after acquiring security analytics.
I'm a security analyst for the Security Operations Center, and our job is to look for indicators of compromise, to validate that there is a compromise, and then to give as much information as we can to the agencies so that they can validate locally and then remediate the problem. Before, it was looking at little bits of information, little snapshots from the firewall logs, from the IPS, and trying to piece together what's happening. Where after using RSA's tool, we were able to get a better overall picture of what's going on, and we can see the full life cycle from the network perspective of an attack or a piece of malware.
Paint us a picture of what it's like in day-to-day operations to use security analytics.
Working as more of a service provider for the different agencies, there's a lot of information that's going through the pipes, and so there's a lot happening. So drilling down into the specific assets that we need to watch most closely, so the critical assets, the crown jewels, and to then try to look for unusual behavior. And the tool automatically comes up with several different indicators, which are a great starting place. Or if you've seen, as you get more and more experience, you can look at the tool for indicators that you've been able to discover on your own, and what indicators you've experienced to come up.
Give us an example of what a typical scenario would be.
One of the common scenarios that we see is an agency will contact us with their machine doing something unusual or not acting as the way it should. And so we can specifically look at their traffic and trace back what they've been doing, who they've been communicating with. So if, for instance, they have a website that they've visited, we can that they've been infected from a drive-by, we can specifically say, this is the website that you've looked at. This is the banner ad that was on that website that bounced you to these 3 different servers before it downloaded the malicious payload. Here's the malicious payload. You can give that to your antivirus vendor if they don't have a signature for it yet. And then we can expand on that and use those indicators of who they're talking to, the command and control servers, and apply that throughout the state and see if any other agency has been affected by this. And so by trying to help one agency, we can apply it to all the rest.
What advice would you have for somebody in your role as they make the change to security analytics?
One of the biggest things is that the tool produces a lot of information. It gives you visibility that you may not have had before. We didn't have it when we first implemented it. And because there's so much new information and you have a much better view of what's going on in your network, that you just need to break it down in pieces. Focus on your critical assets, take one piece at a time. It can be a big learning curve if you don't know your IP protocols or what web traffic looks like and how it communicates. And so just stick with it bit by bit. It adds up very quickly, and you can quickly understand what's going on and what's malicious, what's not right from your network perspective and the traffic that your network sees.
Any lessons learned, anything that you'd do differently if you had it all over to do again?
One of the things that we learned to do later on was to customize the tool so that it can meet our specific needs. You can customize it through per particular analyst, or you can do it through organization. And so for the analyst, some analysts have a network engineering background, some have a web design background, some have a sysadmin background, and so they can tailor their interface so that it matches the way that they approach solving the problem and their strengths. Then from an organizational point of view, you can break it down into your critical assets so you can focus on those. You can break it down so that with one click you can focus on an organizational unit within your company or your agency. So if human resources calls you and they have something that's going on unusual in a couple of their systems, you can, with one click, see just all human resources traffic, and all the rest has been filtered out. And then you can take another step further and focus on specific machines and see exactly what's going in and out of those machines.
And what's next in your battle? What tools will you need or deploy?
Our next step are to get better visibility throughout the network and throughout the different agencies. One of the things is kind of an ISP, we don't have endpoint visibility, and so we're looking to get as much information as we can and to keep delving into those through automation and through...
What are the next steps in protecting your enterprise?
The next steps are to get a better endpoint visibility. So we have a lot of networking information and network knowledge, and so we're hoping to get more information from the endpoints to be able to get an enterprise view of the network and of attacks, so that we can know just an instance is one instance, or we can know it's part of a larger attack in a larger scenario and respond to it in kind.
So what's your favorite part of using security analytics?
My favorite part is getting the overall picture, the full landscape of an attack, where before we would have slices, a bit of information from the firewall logs, a bit from the IPS. With this tool, we can now get an overall picture of this is the full life cycle, this is where it was downloaded, this is what it's communicating to on the network, this is the payload, and we can get all that information wrapped up and get the full landscape of this is the attack and this is everything that they're doing.